Good afternoon, everyone. I hope somebody out there can hear me okay. We'll just give it a couple of minutes as we've got a lot of people coming on, and I will mute everyone just before we start, but you've got another minute or so yet. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And once again, we join this strange discovery of me talking to myself on a Monday afternoon in my kitchen. So this is the fifth progress update and catch-up session on the Symology Street Manager integration. Moved for a Monday from a Wednesday because the Street Manager have now nabbed every other Wednesday for their catch-ups. Apologies just in advance for the short notice of this one. It was something I was trying to sneak in a catch-up before we did the release schedule that's coming out later this week. And I want to get it done before that happens, and time just suddenly slipped away as it does. But hopefully you're all available and able to take the session. We are recording it and we'll post it up on Slack afterwards. So just to quickly go through the agenda, very similar stuff to previous meetings, a quick catch up on where we are on coronavirus. The main meat of the meeting is about the release schedule and the release status, what new features we put in. Then we'll go through a few issues arising, some next steps, what the DfT are doing next, and then I'll leave it open for Q&A at the end. I know that doesn't work very well over Zoom, but you can always just ask me any questions and I can call you back afterwards, or I will stay on the line for a few minutes in case anyone wants to catch up. As far as coronavirus is concerned, we're still as we were as an organisation. No reported cases, no significant staff absence. We're all safe, all well. No one's been furloughed, no one's on reduced hours or been made redundant. So we're carrying on, and it seems to be actually working quite well, this remote working thing. So we're all here, hopefully still providing you the same level of service you'd expect. If it isn't, then please contact your account manager because it seems to be going okay for us at the moment. Moving on to key thing of today, the release schedule. So hopefully your account manager has contacted at least the primary contacts in each organisation to tell you about this. So I just want to add a little bit more detail to that. So what we're starting off is a test system early release on the 21st of May. So that's this Thursday. And we will also make that available on Symposium for locally hosted customers. When I say Thursday, it'll be sometime Thursday. It might not be there 9 o'clock in the morning. Your system may not be upgraded at 9 o'clock that morning. So on Thursday, we'll be upgrading some test systems to the latest version, the latest Street Manager integration. That will be just some pre-selected customers. Anyone who's got the time and committed to the time to be able to test between the 22nd of May and the 29th of May, which is only 5 working days. Really, that's just an opportunity to confidence check new features before we roll it out to everyone on the 1st of June. So we've got a few people already lined up for that. We're probably nearly full on what we need for that. But if there is anyone out there who desperately wants that 5 working days early, and particularly if you've got some scripted tests you can run through, and you've got the time and availability, we'd appreciate you running it then. And that helps to spot any showstoppers, any last minute things that have snuck in that shouldn't before we start rolling it out to everybody else. I can confirm that the shared service paperwork system, if you're on that big service, that will be including that test release, and so you will get access to it on Thursday. And then the full test system release will be made available on 1st of June. That'll be made available on Symposium for locally hosted customers. And we will be upgrading all the remaining managed service test systems between the 1st of June and the 5th of June. That's quite a big job, so that will take us the whole week. We'll be doing that during office hours as it's the test system. That then gives you nearly a month of business process testing with that version. Effectively, that is the release candidate release. That's all we're going to do. The only difference between that and the final release will be any issues you find testing that from the 1st of June onwards. You will have noticed in the slides and on the email a sort of slightly cryptic red bit there that says 379 for that release. We haven't jumped a load of versions suddenly. It is still version 375, but when we're issuing it out on Symposium, there is obviously still the live version which you're using for Eaton operation on a day-to-day basis. If there's any issues with that, we need to be able to issue that out without getting all these Street Manager changes that are not necessarily fully tested yet. So we're just giving it, for Symposium purposes, a different number, 379. But to all intents and purposes, it is still 375. There's no additional implications of that. It's just a separate branch of the code. Then I'm hoping that sometime in mid-June we can do a user performance test as well. We have performed system tests with the DfT where we call their API very, very quickly, sending data in and getting data out and checking the results. And that's gone really well from both sides. There's no concerns there. I would like to do the same thing, perhaps just from a user point of view, where perhaps sometime mid-June, a whole bunch of us all get on for 10, 15, 20 minutes and just raise permits, respond to permits, and just check there is nothing else coming out of the woodwork that is different in a user test compared to like a sort of system automated test. So probably the next webinar, I'll try and advise you a bit more detail on that and provide a date. It's an optional thing, but if anyone wants to chip in and help out there, that would be useful to another bit of risk mitigation before go live. And then we move on to the live release, so 22nd of June, back to using version 375 notation. Again, we'll make it available on Symposium. The managed service upgrade will actually take place at the end of that week over the weekend. And that's the version that must be used for live operation. Whilst you can obviously test on the test release, use the live operation, there's bound to be something in there that we address in that release. So you do need a program update to that version before you go live, even if you don't take a test release. The version you're on at the moment, again, mustn't be used for live operation. We will have made improvements and we've implemented lots of new features. With that version, there's no sort of anything nasty to do. You do have to generally run the YSWR code just to refresh all the message settings and code of practice settings. Otherwise, moving on, then we have the Street Manager go live overnight on the 30th of June, and I think everyone in the community is pretty sure it's going to happen this time. The DfT have put out some very strong messages to say it is going to happen overnight that night. So that's just a case of running that special program YSM ODUPD, which updates all your ODs from Eaton 6 to Street Manager, and turning on nbatch SI so you can start getting transactions back from Street Manager. If you're on the managed service, that will do that for you that evening. If you're locally hosted, you will need to do that yourself that evening, that morning, at the most appropriate time for you. That's quite a lot of information, so I will summarize that just in a diagram in a moment. There's one outstanding issue, which I can't tell you the answer to today, I haven't decided it yet, is exactly when we start collecting works updates from. So as soon as we make those changes, you can start sending works in to Street Manager. But overnight on the 30th, do we start pick up works in Street Manager from the 30th, or do we go back a bit and pick up any works that have been sent in earlier that week? The answer to that really depends on whether any other works promoters are going to go early to Street Manager. At the moment, we don't know of anyone who's planning to go early. So we could leave it as late as the 30th of June. But if Northern Power Grid started sending works in from sort of the 20th of June onwards, we might want to go back and start bringing in works from that point in time onwards. There are a number of road authorities, highway authorities, who are entering in their own works, but that's not going to affect you if you are not that highway authority and you are a works promoter. So we'll come back to you on that issue. So just to go over the release schedule, there's our key dates along the top that I've just talked about. So today, May the 18th, early test release Thursday this week, the main test release June the 1st, the production live release June the 22nd, and then go live overnight on July the 1st, June the 30th, July the 1st. So you have effectively two testing windows, a short window from May the 21st onwards of about 5 days. That's for any showstoppers you can find for us before we roll it out. If you've got some important issues you need to recheck, you can obviously recheck them then to make sure they're definitely not in that June the 1st release. Definitely not still an issue. And then the main bulk of testing during June the 1st to June the 22nd. We'll be performing managed service upgrades on May the 21st to those selected early test release customers. And then first week of June, we'll be doing the remaining test system upgrades. And then we'll be doing live system upgrades the weekend of the 27th and 28th. Locally hosted upgrades, well, you can do that to a certain extent whenever you like, but May the 21st onwards, you get the first release. June the 1st onwards, you get the second release. So anytime in that window. Please don't leave it too late. If you want to get any testing done, you really need to have it done by perhaps the end of the first week of June to give you enough time window to look at it in detail. Then, of course, you have another update anytime between June the 22nd and probably about June the 28th. So a full working week there to do it. Then we have the transition on June the 30th, where you have to run that transition process, either managed service or locally hosted, to get yourself ready for go live. Once you've run that transition process, you are live on Street Manager. So if you do it 6:30 on June the 30th, that's effectively when you are running Street Manager. There is a big caveat for all of that, which is the Street Manager, the DfT release schedule. They've given us their series of sprints for the next 2 years of the contract that Kainos have run. So we know exactly what's coming out when, and we have the sandbox release dates and the production week release dates. There's now a week between those dates. We lobbied hard to try and get more time rather than the Thursday sandbox, Monday production, which didn't give us enough time. So there's a week for us to spot any issues with the sandbox and to go to production. So that's all okay. Sprint 5 goes to sandbox on the 11th, so that gives us a full working week with that release before we issue out the full production release. So we've requested that as few changes as possible that might have any impact are done in that release. I made that request on Friday, so I think they're on board with that. And we've requested really perhaps nothing goes into Sprint 6, or Sprint 6 is not even released, because we don't really want to release going in the day after go live that could break things. So the DfT have taken that on board, and they're looking at that, and they will come back to us. And of course, that's quite relevant. Anyone who was using the test system and on Slack last week will have noticed that on the 14th, last Thursday, the sandbox release broke the get updates service. It wasn't subtle. They fields returned didn't pass schema validation, and so we couldn't call that service at all. And that's the sort of thing, totally unintentional, no changes were planned in that area. A guy from the DfT said with the Kainos, they weren't proud of that change. It wasn't intentional. We believe that's now fixed, and I believe that sandbox and test systems are now communicating to each other. Didn't have a chance before the call this afternoon to fully confirm that, but transactions were going in. So it's about the third or fourth time something like this has happened. So it's why we have to be very careful about those sandbox releases. Moving forward to the release status and what's in it. So we will be updating documents on Symposium about the new release. In fact, they're already there. All the documents will refer to the software released on the 1st of June. So there could be a few legacy issues with the early release, but if I know they're going to be fixed and tested for that 1st of June release, I won't include them in the documentation. So the documentation is all set up for the 1st of June release. That document includes in it any Street Manager issues that are outstanding that might affect you as Insight users. And I've included the call number reference in there, so if they fix it in Sandbox production, they will now include those call reference numbers in there so we can track what's fixed. So there's a few in there outstanding that may actually affect you, and you may see. Some of them may be fixed before go live, some may not be. In that document, I'm also going to document the known errors with that release, the known visible errors, things that you would actually likely to spot. Fairly cheekily, at the moment, that the document is empty in that area, because the plan is that for that 1st of June release, all the reported issues you've raised, all the errors are fixed. We have a few issues at the moment that probably will still be in the early test release, but that are planned to be fixed in time for the 1st of June, and a couple of customer requested things which are going to just sneak in at the very last minute. But if we do spot anything during the early testing phases or our own testing, we'll pop them in that space ready for that 1st of June release. Any issues you raise during testing in June will be addressed in the live release. So unless there's an absolute showstopper stopping the whole community test, you will raise them and we will just address them ready for that, the 22nd. We won't be updating programs unless it's absolutely essential. That document will be static from the 1st of June, so I won't be updating it during June. We'll come back to that more at the end of the session. So that will just be a spear in the ground. The program's dated the 1st of June. These are, that's the status of that release. Moving on to new features, things we've done since the March release and the beginning of April. What have we done with the time we've had? Well, we've sort of implemented subsumed sites. Street Manager made a change where it is now possible to pass in dimensions of 0. And of course, if you've got a subsumed site, you don't actually have a length, width, and depth. So we can now pass subsumed sites into Street Manager. They pass the validation and they can get in there, and they will appear in Street Manager with a length, width, and depth of 0. And then when it comes out of Street Manager, we will take we will assume a site with a length, width, and depth of 0 is actually a subsumed site and doesn't represent a real reinstatement. So I say sort of because I think Street Manager are planning in a later release, it's in their roadmap, to address subsumed sites properly, which means they'll have a proper status on them to say it's subsumed. And so that will just sort of make it more formal than it is at the moment. But they're in there, those sites can go across. The big one is road restrictions and section 58s. Doesn't really affect highway authorities too much because you've been able to send these up for a while now. This is for works promoters, so you can download them. But they have done it differently to our normal downloads. The get update service we call to get all the changes to permits doesn't include updates to road restrictions and activities. So what they've done is provide a completely separate hourly CSV export of changes. And you can go back the last 2 weeks only for that. So we can get a list of everything that's changed in the last hour. So we will call that every hour and download that information to the connection manager, and then we'll hold a database of all road restrictions for England that are in Street Manager. And then the NBatch SI process that calls the connection manager every 5 minutes or so will download changes from that database every hour as part of its normal get cycle. So you don't have to do anything differently at your end. It will just get them for you. That download is limited to promoter and contractor organizations only, for two reasons. One, as a highway authority, you don't need to get them down because you're sending them up. And two, for the reasons we'll go through in a minute about the bounding box. Before we go on, Insight creates Section 58s as activities in Street Manager. There are two places in Street Manager you can create them as: activities or as works and permits. The works and permits is a legacy place that was there in the early days, and they've never got around to taking it out. We hope they will sometime after July. So if you do have to use the user interface for any reason, don't create them as works and permits. We won't be, and hopefully no one else will be either, but it does still sit there in the system. Yeah, so the slight problem with getting road restrictions in Section 58 is there is no concept of areas of interest in Street Manager for HAs to identify who to send them to, nor is there any way in Street Manager to sort of pick which organisations it goes to or districts. So it is just a fairly static national database of Section 58s. So short of doing a lot of complicated stuff ourselves, what we're going to do is pretty much download everything, but use the system bounding rectangle to narrow it down to the most relevant records. So it will get it just for that square, that rectangle that you're interested in. So you need to set that correctly to minimize the download of irrelevant Section 58s. So if you're a road authority, a highway authority, you would always get irrelevant stuff. So that's why I've just turned that off completely. As a highway authority, it is send only for Section 58s. You are sending them up. It's the only works promoters, only the planner and contractor role that brings them down. If you are a works promoter, then if you're working nationally, you don't need to worry about the bounding rectangle because you'll want everything for the whole of England. If you're working regionally, then if you put the bounding rectangle in, then it will help narrow down the volumes and you'll see the wood for the trees. Your account manager will be getting in touch with you if the bounding rectangle is relevant to you. A lot of you already have it set perfectly correctly. For shared service and paperwork customers, it is not relevant. There's no option to do that. You will just get all Section 58s and road restrictions nationally in your system. That's not the perfect and ideal way of doing it, not be able to sort of restrict it down to just the areas you want. And it's a very sort of MVP solution. The reason we've left it like that is twofold. One, Street Manager have in their roadmap a plan to provide users control about notifying works promoters about new and updated road restrictions of individual works promoters. So they may actually implement something that gives us more control over who gets what. When we go to Aurora, we're going to sort of take that connection manager solution a little bit further and have within Aurora a single multi-tenanted national set of Section 58s available to all customers. So you won't actually even need to download it into each individual system. So there won't be a need to say, these are the only ones relevant to me. You will just, as you are creating works, it will just pick up the most relevant ones from that sort of common set, and we won't need to duplicate the data at all. So given those two things, we just needed to get something in that would work. So, but for most of you as work promoters, you will get a lot more road restrictions than you would have had in the past, but we're working on the basis that more is better than less. Moving on, a few more new features. As we were in March in Street Manager, you couldn't actually really, if for multi-owner streets, specify who the works was for, whether it's for the public side or for the private side. That has now been implemented in Street Manager. So if in Insight you record a works on a street which has multiple owners, part public, part private, you can specify the owning district, and it will then go to the public part or private part in Street Manager. And when it comes down, we'll load it against the public or private part. If it was completely separate organisation owners, it would have worked okay before because Street Manager had the concept of different organisations, but it didn't have anything at the district level. It hasn't done it with districts, it's done it with road types, but it has achieved the same thing. So a lot of you may have been getting issues when loading works into your system saying that sort of rejected because it couldn't identify the notifiable OD. That will solve this problem. Registration of non-notifiable works have now been implemented. It's a pretty simple transaction and it's fairly fire and forget. You just register it and that's it. You can't send updates. You can send comments. You can create a new notifiable phase, but it creates this separate thing of a non-notifiable works. Be aware they are quite difficult to find in Street Manager. There's no nice, easy inquiry for it. You have to go into the registered works and search for a street or a reference number to find them. They don't appear in the main works list. There's a troubleshooting article about finding those for you. Completion of non-notifiable phases is not implemented in Street Manager. We're just implementing a workaround, so it will send up a comment with some narrative text about the completion of that phase. Many of you will have hit the issue where a works has came in on a district that didn't exist, so we now have the code to create operational districts on the fly if they don't exist. You will need to update the district name to a meaningful one. If it comes in on a district we don't know about, say District 55, we will just give it a name of District 55, and you'll have to go into the organization and district codes and just update that to something more meaningful. There are a few additional features that might sneak in before the end of June. Things that we're considering at the moment officially are out of scope, but you never know. If not, stuff to plan after the 1st of July. Street Manager has changed the way forward plans work. Previously in Eton, you could do a forward plan on a minor or standard works. When you convert them to a normal works, Street Manager does that with a progressing of a PAA transaction, and therefore always assumes they're major works. So we're going to restrict them to major works as well. Otherwise, there will be an inconsistency between our works type and their works type. At the moment, your Insight username can go up to Street Manager. It's not being brought down and stored in Street Manager, so you won't actually know who did it. You'll just see the email address of the API user. Currently, also permit condition text across all the different conditions. If you string them all together, it can be greater than 500 characters. We bring it down, store it in the database, but we're not displaying the full limit yet. And finally, HS2 sort of snuck in at the last minute, and we didn't really know too much about it and what functionality there is in there for HS2. We have now got a login, courtesy of some emails. Thank you, Solihull, for that. And with HS2, they've given us the users. We can look at that and see if there's any additional information we can download that might be useful there. So that's sort of the next things on our to-do list. Street Manager also have published an unattributable works workaround using section 81s. We don't recommend using that. I mean, it works, it should work in Insight, but I think it's going to confuse everyone if you start putting unattributable works in the section 81s. And I think it will also cause transitional issues because at some point in the not too distant future, unattributable works will be coming into Street Manager in the roadmap. And so therefore you'll have a mixture of section 81s that are section 81s and unattributable works, and unattributable works that are both unattributable works and section 81. So I think just do them separately at the moment until they're done properly. Section 81s, we're not downloading them for contractors. If you are not a statutory undertaker, if you're working on behalf of other people, because Street Manager doesn't allow you to allocate them to a work stream, you just send them to the top level statutory undertaker. So the problem there is if you send it to a statutory undertaker with 3 different districts, there's 3 different contractors, the first one could reject, the second one could accept, and the third one could reject, leaving effectively a rejected section 81 that the person who accepted it can't really progress satisfactorily. So we're only going to download them for the statutory undertaker, and they should use their own accept and deny process via their own system, their own Insight system or Street Manager user interface. There is, again, Street Manager planning to address that in a future release to allocate them to work streams. A long saga with the DfT is about their transition advice. At the moment, they suggest you, for this is for ongoing works in progress or major works that don't finish before the end of July, that you resurrect them in Street Manager and then you cancel them. We pointed out the problem then is if You're then creating a new Street Manager phase against an in-flight insight works, eat and works. And then after that, you're doing an eat and cancel, which may well just cancel the works you've just created. So our advice is to do it the other way around, to cancel the eat and works first and then resurrect it. The DfT don't want to change the guidance because they don't want anyone to be in a situation where they're working without a permit, even for a few minutes. So we have had to change Insight to allow that process above so that you can receive a new Street Manager phase on an in-flight eat and works, and that will migrate it, upgrade it to Street Manager. And if we receive an eat and cancellation on a Street Manager phase, to just ignore it because we don't want to cancel the works you've just been resurrected. So it's a bit of a pain. It is documented in the transition guide, but we can't control what everyone's doing. So there could be other works promoters who follow the DfT guidance to the letter, which might cause a few weird situations for some higher authorities. Moving on to the documentation that's on Symposium, that's been brought up to date for today's seminar, and the key ones I've highlighted there that have changed are the user interface changes. Nothing major in there, but we've updated that in line with changes we've made since March. Likewise for interfacing concepts. And finally, the integration troubleshooting FAQ has had quite a lot of issues. All those issues you've been raising the last few months, I've been putting in the troubleshooting document. We've already mentioned the release status document. Troubleshooting is a good go-to position. It's getting a go-to starting point for any issue you get. It's not just problems, it's often solutions, workarounds for a lot of areas. As far as if you find issues during the main test phase from in June, if you find any issues, please check the troubleshooting guide first, because if it's in there, it will help you solve the problem. If it's not in there, then let us know and we can probably put it in there afterwards. Then check on Slack in case someone else has put a similar issue or there's been any news from Symology about something's broken, something's not working, the DfT have changed something. Finally, check there's a new channel on Slack called June Test Status, which we'll go into in just a second. And if all those three don't work, then post on Slack the issue you've got. Please don't post on that June Test Status channel. So what I've got there is a new June Test Status channel because I wanted to keep the release status static after June, but have a living document. So as you report issues in June, hopefully there won't be too many, we can post them up and so you can see them and we can let you know as they're progressing through development and confirm they're going to be fixed one way or another. There's lots of funky tools you can have on the web to do this sort of thing. I've plumped for the very simple lowbrow solution of having an Excel spreadsheet to track those issues. It's up there at the moment. You will need to join that hashtag June Test Status channel to be able to see it. It's a view-only document. So when you raise an issue, if it results in a software change, we'll put it in that document. As I said on there, please don't post on that channel. We'll try and keep that as clean as possible so it's literally just that spreadsheet. Post on the general channels, other channels, and people will better go into there, see that document, and just see if the issue they've raised has already been reported. After 30th of June, we'll want you to raise issues formally via the Symology help desk as a proper case as you would normally do, because it's then on supported software and we'll go for the normal support channels. And effectively the Slack is ended as far as the integration testing. We might leave it up though, so if you please let me or your account manager know, post on Slack now if you want us to leave something up longer term for more informal chats about Street Manager or to facilitate Works Promoter, higher authority chats. Let us know. It does seem to be quite a good mechanism for the community, but that would be an informal channel, not the formal channel, but feel free to let us know if you'd like to still post on there. So just to finish off, last few slides, 30 working days now until the Street Manager go live, excluding today. So we have a bit of time, but not a lot of time. if you haven't already, there are still some things to do. Your account manager should have been haranguing you about the things you need to do to get your configuration right. Probably, if you're on this call, you've probably got it correct, because the people who haven't got it correct are probably not on this call. I'm too busy sorting it out. But just a reminder, there are still some loose ends about getting API details, workstream permissions, contractor permissions all set up on Sandbox and on production. Making sure your own ODs are correct in production. The system bounding box for promoters is a Section 81 default assessment OD you can set up as well. So don't stop now. Don't stop until your account manager says, yes, everything's done, everything's perfect. Then you can move on to some testing, which will be really appreciated in June. And then if you haven't noticed, the DfT have now published a Next Steps document. This is their roadmap for July the 1st onwards to replace the old roadmap. So some interesting stuff in there. It's worth a read to help you get an idea of which direction Street Manager is going. Just to go onto the main GitHub page, and there's a link to it from there. What's quite reassuring is, though, pretty much all the enhancements on there are things already provided by Insight. Street Manager isn't going off in a brand spanking new direction. So there's things like unattributable works, reporting, amending an inspection, sending traffic signal information, Section 81 improvements, linking works to road restrictions and vice versa, more non-compliance management. It's all even combined and subsumed sites, doing them properly. Sample inspections, promoter self-inspections, things you've already got. We will make sure, though, for those things that come in that aren't in the interface, like unattributable works, we'll provide an interface for those new facilities as they come in, subject to us getting sufficient advance notice. But we're meeting with the DfT developers on a monthly basis, so hopefully that should be okay. Apologies, I'm getting reports that the sound is breaking up. I'm about to finish, but I have had 2 questions as we've gone on. So I will just try and answer those. A couple of questions. Let's just find them now. One about Section 81 fully functional from June. Yes, there are no known errors in there for the 1st of June. There are obviously quite a few known errors in the current release. It was a bit last minute getting in there for the end of March. Someone's asked about, if you don't use the Section 81 process for unattributable works, what would you do? Well, I would record it still as an unattributable works in Insight. That transaction is still there, available for you to use, and then probably just produce a PDF report and just email that to the works promoter to tell them what they've got. Someone's just asked about accessing the Slack group. If you contact your account manager, then they will be able to answer that and give you the link across to that. We're probably about to finish the meeting in about 1.5 minutes. We're going to run out of Zoom. But if anyone does want to shout out, any questions? If not, I'll hang on. Hopefully the sound wasn't too bad for you at the end.
Good afternoon, Symology.
Okay, well, I've got stunned silence and no further information in the chat, so feel free to raise anything on Slack, contact your account manager or myself via Slack or the usual channels. Otherwise, thank you very much for the afternoon and paying attention, and hope you all stay safe, keep well, and we'll see you all soon. Bye for now.